Have you ever stopped mid-game just to look around? Not because something attacked you, but because the world in front of you was too beautiful to keep moving through. Some games use art not as decoration, but as the actual language of the experience. The colors tell you how to feel. The visuals and the gameplay speak the same sentence. Every game on this list will make you stop at some point and think, I've never seen anything that looks quite like this. Let's get into it.
We'll break the cycle.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This is what happens when a small French studio decides that art direction matters more than budget. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 won Best Art Direction at the 2025 Game Awards, and the moment you see it in motion, you understand why without anyone having to explain it to you. The world looks like a living oil painting. Soft light filters through crumbling architecture. Characters move through landscapes that feel like they were composed, not generated. The premise is haunting. Every year, a figure called the Paintress writes a number, and everyone who has reached that age disappears. You lead the last expedition to stop her. The turn-based combat has a real-time layer that keeps every fight active and tense, and the music composed to match every visual shift makes the whole thing feel like experiencing a great film. Around 30 to 40 hours, every frame justifies the time. Ori and the Will of the Wisp. There are games that are beautiful, and then there's Ori, which operates on a completely different level. Will of the Wisps takes the painterly forest world of its predecessor and pushes every element further. More color, more light, more detail in every leaf and raindrop. The forest of Niwen feels genuinely alive. Creatures glow in the dark. Waterfalls catch light mid-fall. The whole environment breathes with ambient animation that runs constantly, whether you're watching it or not. But the art serves the movement. Ori moves with a fluidity that makes platforming feel like dancing. Fluid, light, satisfying in the specific way that only comes when animation and controls are designed together. The story is quiet and emotionally direct, and the final stretch hits harder because of how beautiful the world is that surrounds it. Around 10-12 hours worth every one of them.
It's time.
Hades 2. The original Hades set a visual standard for the roguelite genre. The sequel starts from that standard and asks, what if we pushed further? Hades 2 moves the action to the surface of the underworld and brings an entirely new protagonist, Melinoe, a moon witch with a completely different set of powers and a visual identity that stands apart from everything in the first game. The color palette shifts depending on where you are, the cold blues of the underworld giving way to warmer, more naturalistic tones on the surface. The character design here is exceptional. Every god, every enemy, every NPC is instantly readable and visually distinctive. The animation is fluid and expressive in a way that makes combat feel kinetic, even in screenshots. Supergiant's hand-painted approach, where every asset was built to have texture and personality, makes this feel like a world that was illustrated rather than rendered. One of the best-looking roguelites ever made, already.
Who are you?
My name is DeWitt. I'm a friend.
The Bioshock Infinite. There's a reason people still post screenshots from Bioshock Infinite over a decade after it launched. Columbia, the game's floating city, was designed with the specific intention of making it feel like a utopia that has started to rot. The art direction leans into American exceptionalism at its most ornate and most suffocating. Flags everywhere, white stone architecture, pastel colors over deeply disturbing social dynamics. That contrast between the beauty of the setting and what's happening inside it is intentional and constantly present. Booker and Elizabeth move through environments that feel like paintings with hidden messages. The stylized realism, not photographic, not cartoon, but something precise and deliberate in between, gives Columbia a look that no game before or after has matched exactly. The combat is satisfying. Elizabeth as a companion is one of the genre's finest, and the story earns its ambition, around 12-15 hours. Don't Starve. Most survival games are about scarcity and fear. Don't Starve is about scarcity and dread, and the art makes you feel the difference. The hand-drawn Tim Burton-influenced aesthetic gives every creature, every biome, every weather system, a personality that purely realistic art never could. Trees look sinister when it's raining. The darkness at night isn't just dangerous, it looks dangerous. Every element of the world is styled to suggest that something is slightly wrong about this place, and that wrongness deepens the longer you play. Wilson, the gentleman scientist dropped into this hostile world, moves through environments that feel like they were drawn in a sketchbook during a particularly unsettling dream. The art reinforces the survival loop. The world is beautiful in the way that unsafe things are beautiful. Don't Starve runs indefinitely. Every death teaches you something. Every new run reveals more of a world that rewards curiosity with more dread. A demon made of glass, skating through hell, trying to eat the moon, is one of the most visually original games of recent years. The aesthetic combines lo-fi nostalgia, PS1-era polygon counts, CRT screen effects, low-resolution textures with surrealist-level design that takes place across a version of hell built from broken mirrors, neon lights, and impossible geometry. It looks like a dream someone had about a skate video from 1998, but the skating itself is the art. Every trick is performed through a gesture system that maps your thumbstick movements to physical actions. The more you understand skateboarding as a physical language, the more expressive the game becomes. The levels are designed as performances rather than obstacles, around 5 to 7 hours, but the time spent mastering each section makes it feel much richer than that. Nothing looks like this game. Okami, released in 2006, still one of the most visually distinctive games ever made. Okami's art direction draws directly from Japanese sumie ink painting and ukiyo-e woodblock prints. The world is rendered in bold outlines, flat color, and an aesthetic that feels more like a living scroll than a video game environment. Amaterasu, the wolf goddess you control, leaves flowers blooming in her wake. The world responds to her presence visually, color returns, trees regrow, light spreads. The celestial brush mechanic, where you literally draw on the screen to interact with the world, makes the art direction mechanical rather than decorative. You're not just looking at the style, you're playing through it. The story runs around 30 to 40 hours and gives you a world that earns exploration at every step. Imagine a world made entirely of yarn, fabric, and felt. Every cloud is stitched. Every enemy unravels when you defeat them. Every platform could be pulled from a craft store shelf. Yoshi's woolly world commits to its material completely. The tactile quality of the visuals, the way wool bunches at the edges of platforms, the way Yoshi himself stretches and compresses as he moves, is designed to make you feel like you're watching a craft project come to life, rather than a game running on a screen. This extends to the level design. Hidden items are literally tucked behind patches of fabric. Yarn bundles serve as currency. The world itself is the craft. It runs around 8 to 10 hours for the main path, with significantly more if you go for full completion. This one starts in black and white, and the game is about getting color back. Gris uses its art as narrative without a single word of dialogue. The protagonist moves through a world that reflects her emotional state, gray and still at the start, gradually gaining color as she progresses, each new hue representing a stage of processing grief. The watercolor style environments shift with the story, literally changing palette as you move through the game's arc. The animation team clearly studied how fabric and hair move, how light falls on water, how snow settles on stone. Every environmental detail is tuned to the emotional register of that section. It's a short experience, around 2 to 3 hours, but it uses every minute of that time. Gris doesn't tell you what it's about, it shows you. Every frame of this game was hand-drawn. Every frame. Cuphead is a side-scrolling action game that runs on 1930s rubber hose animation, the style of early Walt Disney and Fleischer Studios cartoons, complete with film grain, sepia-toned intros, and the specific bounciness of characters from that era. The animators drew thousands of individual frames to build this. The bosses, each one a distinct visual concept, move and transform in ways that only hand-drawn animation can produce. The challenge is real. Cuphead is genuinely difficult, with boss fights that require pattern recognition and precise timing. But the game understands that the art is the attraction. Every failed run is still a chance to watch something animated with extraordinary care. Around 6 to 8 hours for the main content, more for full completion. Cuphead proves that commitment to a visual vision, taken to its absolute limit, produces something timeless.
Take him down, Joker! Let's go!
Revi menu screen is a work of graphic design. Every transition is a visual statement. This is a JRPG that treats its interface as art. Five Royals' visual identity is built on a specific aesthetic tension, the red and black urgency of graffiti art placed against the formal structure of a Japanese high school. The Phantom Thieves operate in a world of rules and conformity, and the game's entire visual language is a rebellion against that. Bold typography, fast cuts, geometric shapes, music that shifts between jazz and hip-hop. The Metaverse, the game's dungeon system, translates each antagonist's psychology into a visual palace, a museum of stolen art, a casino of rigged odds, a pyramid of slave labor. Each location is a piece of visual storytelling. The main story runs around 100 hours and never lets the visual energy drop. Two people made this. The hand-drawn gothic art of Hollow Knight, all those shadowed caverns, silent nights, and ancient ruins, was created by a team of 2 artists who built thousands of individual assets by hand. The result is a world with a coherent visual identity that larger studios with larger teams have struggled to match. Muted blues and blacks occasionally broken by glowing amber or orange. Creatures designed to feel both threatening and somehow melancholic. Hollow Knight is a dead kingdom, and the art makes that legible without exposition. Ruins that were clearly once grand. Creatures that seem to remember something they can no longer access. The combat is precise and rewarding. The world is built to reward exploration, and the runtime, upwards of 40 to 60 hours for full completion, is filled with visual discoveries at every depth. Knowing 2 people built this doesn't make it more impressive, it makes it staggering. Borderlands 3. There are games that use cell shading, and then there's Borderlands, which built an entire franchise identity around it. The thick black outlines, the comic book color palette, the way every surface looks like it was inked by hand, this visual style was distinctive in 2009, and it's been refined across 3 main entries to a point where Borderlands 3 represents its fullest expression. The world of the Borderlands is recognizable from a screenshot taken from any angle. Weichin. The art serves the chaos. Bright colors for an anarchic looter shooter where everything is loud and nothing takes itself too seriously. Billions of weapons, each rendered in that same consistent style. Enemy designs that are creative across an enormous variety of types. The co-op experience, 4 players in that world simultaneously, is visually overwhelming in the best way. Around 30 to 40 hours for the main story, far more for everything else.
You are the mighty lamb in Massive Monster and Devolver Digital's Cult of the Lamb.
A lamb chosen for sacrifice comes back as the vessel of a dark god and builds a cult of woodland creatures. The art makes this feel cozy. That tonal dissonance is the entire point of Cult of the Lamb's visual design. The character designs, rounded, soft, adorable in the way that small animals are adorable, are placed in direct contrast with the game's actual content. Ritual sacrifice, indoctrination, roguelite dungeon crawling. The cuteness is weaponized to make the darkness funnier and more uncomfortable simultaneously. The color palette shifts between the warm tones of your commune, where you're gardening and building and feeding followers, and the more saturated, darker palette of the dungeons. Each shift reinforces the split identity of the game. Around 15-20 hours for a full run with significant replayability. Cult of the Lamb is the rare game where the art direction explains the joke. Celeste. All this in fright. The pixel art style. Dense, detailed, full of environmental storytelling in the objects and textures of each room, carries the emotional weight of a game that is quietly about something serious. Mental health, self-acceptance, the gap between how hard something looks from the outside and how hard it actually is. The mountain Madeline climbs shifts in visual tone as she does, the early chapters cold and unwelcoming, the later ones warmer as her relationship with herself changes. The gameplay is precise, demanding, and deeply fair. Deaths are instant restarts with no punishment, which keeps the focus on learning. Each chapter introduces new mechanics and builds its visual identity around them. Around 8 to 10 hours for the story, but speedrunners and completionists find far more. Celeste uses its pixel art not as a limitation, but as a language, and it is fluent. Chants of Sennaar. Language itself becomes the visual art form. Chants of Sennaar is set in a tower where different civilizations speak completely different languages, and as you explore, you collect glyphs and deduce their meanings by observing context. The writing system of each culture is designed as a visual art style, geometric and mathematical for one, flowing and organic for another, angular and structural for a third. Learning to read these systems is the gameplay. The overall aesthetic, inspired by ancient Middle Eastern and Egyptian visual culture, is warm and detailed, with environmental storytelling built entirely from observation, rather than text you can already understand. Around 6 to 8 hours, but the experience of making sense of something illegible and watching it become readable is one of the most unique things any recent game offers. Chants of Sennaar treats visual design as a puzzle, and solving it feels remarkable. What happens when you take the brutality of Sekiro and wrap it in traditional Chinese brush painting? 9 Wells answers that question across a 15 to 20 hour action game set in a Taopunk world where ancient Chinese mythology meets science fiction. The hand-drawn art, clearly influenced by wuxia comics and inkwash painting, gives every environment a quality that feels deliberate and considered. Characters are rendered in a style that reads clearly at action speed, while remaining visually distinctive immersive in still frames. The combat borrows the parry-focused intensity of Sekiro and builds on it, precise, punishing, deeply satisfying when it clicks. Boss designs are creative and visually unique, each one built around a thematic concept that the art direction reinforces. The story digs into Taoist philosophy, with genuine engagement, rather than surface decoration. When Nine Souls is the kind of game that reminds you what independent studios can achieve when they commit completely to a specific vision.